Very good morning to you. Welcome along. It's a brand new era. We're top of the group, baby. How do you feel? 6 points from 2 games. You can get in touch with us this morning using hashtag OTBAM or wherever it is that you're listening to us or watching us on this fine morning. Everybody's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. The tennis ball protest seems to have worked. We've discovered a few players. Everything's good again, right? We're great. We're back, baby.
Unpolishing the gem, or finding the gem that has been Glenn Whelan, is something that Mick McCarthy can take you. Not unpolishing. That's not the correct verb.
Unpolishing the turd is.
Well, I was going down the line. I was like, actually,
no. Come on.
Terrible thing to say about Glenn Whelan. Bringing him back could be seen as an absolute masterstroke, albeit we're at a very early stage of the comeback. He was like immensely good last night.
I want to throw one of our colleagues under the bus here. The player ratings went out last night. End of call, diligently working away, and loads of good ratings for players who played well for Ireland last night. But it's 6 for Glenn Whelan, like a historic 6. Like that's what he would have got if he played his best game ever for Ireland. The night that he scored that cracker against Italy all those years ago. 6. What does it say? Replaced Matt Doherty in the middle of the field, provided the cover for Horan and Hendrick to get forward a bit more, and that's it. I mean, come on, I know that's a bit harsh, isn't it?
It's extremely harsh.
Like, was that not like a 7.5? Maybe more?
More? Glenn Whelan was an 8 out of 10 last night, and I'm not entertaining any other argument on it. He would have been man of the match if David McGoldrick did not exist.
The Villa fans understand this, right? Because there was a game recently where they were 3-0 down, and like the season was dying. Glenn Whelan was on the bench. Glenn Whelan comes on. He doesn't actually score the 3 goals that get them back into the game, that completely turns their season around. But as a result, the Jenga stops collapsing, and things start to improve. Everybody. Grealish starts to get the ball in good places. Horan starts to get the ball in good places. They suddenly know that they look back and it's like, Glenn Whelan's there. Okay. Now, there's a bit of revisionism going on. Like, maybe he wasn't the only thing that happened that night. Things happen in games, they're a bit weird. But he played well last night and everybody looked better around him, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Come on, I think I'm 7.5, 8.
The great thing about last night's performance is that it reminded us of how we can be really good to watch and provide us with a lot of excitement while still being quite Irish and quite practical at times. Like, I've got nothing wrong. I've got no problem whatsoever with, if the centre-backs are in danger, just hoofing the ball up the pitch. And they did it a couple of times, nowhere near the amount of times that they used to do it under previous regimes. But it's a necessary part.
We did a fair bit of it. Well, in fairness, there was a bit where there was a McGoldrick header that flashed where we had actually passed the ball from the goalkeeper to our own players, and everybody was a little bit uncomfortable in the ground going, what's going to happen here? Who's going to make the mistake that allows one of the Georgians to, find us in possession and streak away and stick in the back of the... I was like, oh, hang on a second, we've still got the ball. The ball's the left wing. It would have been like the longest row of, it would have been one of those fast-forwarded goals where the ball pings around the pitch. Like, but this is great. We're playing good football.
There was one moment where Glenn Whelan got the ball at the base of the diamond, if you can use that phrase, and just absolutely lashed it to James McLean. And James McLean was like, I've never actually had a ball kicked at me this hard, and I've controlled it, and we still have the ball. All these little things just brought a smile to my face and a smile to everybody's face last night. We're back.
Yeah, in fairness, a load of decisions. A lot of people will probably regret their Twitter presence last night. Tommy, for example, was like... I've just seen the team. I'm delighted I forgot to record it. I've no interest in watching this team play tonight because, Matt Doherty wasn't playing. He said, no, that's it. I'm finished. I'm done. The McCarthy era is over for me. Haven't actually found out how he feels this morning about that. But somebody who is very happy this morning is Glenn Whelan after the game last night, after he made his return to Irish football. His retirement became an issue. Here he is talking with Phil Egan for Off the Ball after the game.
As far as retirement, I never retired. Obviously, Martin O'Neill at the time he was going about his thing, and obviously understood that because obviously, like I said, I'm getting on in age. So I'm very grateful to Martin to then get the phone call from Mick to come back. So obviously, like I said, I didn't know where I was going to stand. I didn't know whether it's just to be around the lads or no, but I'm pushing them. We've got a few young lads who are coming through who need that little bit of experience. So if I can pass that on a little bit, because I think there's only about 4 or 5 of us actually who's really in proper double figures. So like I said, got some young lads coming through, and the better we become, they have to be given chances.
Glenn, what's going through your head in the 33rd minute when the free kick has been awarded, yourself and Conor are standing over it, and then the tennis balls arrive?
Yeah, I think there was something said yesterday in the press about some sort of protest, but listen, it's probably bad timing, but you're saying that now. Obviously, Connor's going on to score, so the next time we get a free kick, hopefully you've all got a tennis ball. So now, obviously, like I said, fans are disgruntled. They have a right to say or protest whatever way they want, but we can only worry about the pitch. And obviously I play with Connor week in, week out, and to be honest with you, once he's set the ball down, I know something's going to happen with him, make the keeper walk or now, like I said, goal. So now we're a fantastic piece of play for Connor, and he's just had a kid as well, so everyone's happy for him.
Yeah, when you get the free kick, I was just looking and Shane Duffy was on the end of the ball. Was that something you'd worked on, that he was just going to peel off and maybe create that space?
It's something that we did work on, but we don't want you telling everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, no, like I said, Shane obviously he's a big lad, so obviously trying to block out the goalkeeper's view, and no bigger man than Shane Duffy's probably got one of the biggest heads in Ireland, so now we block out most things.
Must have been great though to come back, as was mentioned there. Some people thought you'd retired, and when you line out tonight and the way you played, that's what it's all about.
Listen, like I said, it's a privilege to come back and put the jersey on. In November I thought that was going to be the last time I'd ever do it, so like I said, to get the phone call to come back now there was no second questions, to be honest. It was like, yeah, get the tickets booked, I'm there. So listen, I know where to stand, I know I'm getting on a little bit, and if I come in and do my part, then I'm more than happy.
Here, that's great. Shane Duffy, one of the biggest heads. Did he say in Irish football or Irish sport?
I think he's in the world.
Did he? Yeah.
Let's go with the world. Let's just say that
Verbally is in.
There's no point even himself and Harry Maguire should have like a huge head off. But like the size of Shane Duffy's head actually could be a massive plus for Ireland going forward into the next couple of games. I'm not sure if we saw that Switzerland-Denmark game last night. The set piece defending for the third Switzerland goal was absolutely horrendous. So a big opportunity for Ireland from set pieces in the first big game, which is in Copenhagen.
Of all of the shit that Duffy pulled, turning the Irish public against Whelan was one of the most egregious, crappy things he did during his entire time of being the clown prince of Irish football. Like, what has that guy ever done, really? And when you hear him talk, he's funny, he's like self-deprecating, he's exactly the type of person you want in your football team. Yeah.
Like what was the main cause for that argument from someone like Eamon Dunphy? Was it because of
he was rich
lateral passing? Was it because of backwards passing?
He was rich. It was the two Ferraris lie that he told. Let's move on, because there was a bit of hoo-ha last night. Apparently, I didn't see the TV commentary because I was at the game. Apparently, the tennis ball protest was not explained during the TV commentary.
No, you could be forgiven this morning for thinking that Ronnie Whelan didn't know what the tennis ball protest was about. So he says, the Irish team are playing well, this is good football. Why are they protesting? Now, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and saying, I think what he meant to say was that, why are they doing this now? Now is not the time to protest, rather than saying, why are they doing this? Because why are they protesting against a good football team? I don't think that's what he actually meant. But there was no explainer on RTE last night. George Hamilton didn't actually say, he had 3 full minutes to do so, why there are tennis balls on the pitch. Why is this strange thing happening? Like, this was a rumour that started circulating in the papers yesterday. You even said that this may actually lead to nothing. This wasn't exactly a massive story. It's not like everybody of whatever it was, close to 1 million people, I'd imagine, watching at home, or at least 600,000 or 700,000 people watching at home last night, would know what was going on. In fact, I would say a good 40-50% of them would say, what is this about? And they wake up this morning and they're still, what is this about?
Well, here's how Nathan and Stephen Ward called it on News Talk last night. Have a listen.
Tennis balls. Here they come. 33 minutes gone.
Yeah, it's a silly time, really, isn't it, to do
the Irish supporters. Well, Seamus Coleman is enraged.
You know, a free
about
kick at the
10,
edge of the
20,
box.
if not more, tennis balls. They are starting to fly onto the pitch down to our right-hand side at Darren Randolph's goal. A few down the other side as well. And I think the point that Seamus Coleman and the Irish players are making is Ireland have a free kick in a really dangerous position. And maybe now isn't the moment to do it. It was 33 minutes, which I'm going to assume is in reference to Team 33.
The best bit of branding that the lads of Team 33 had ever managed to pull off. You can hear it live on the radio every Friday night at 9 o'clock. It's unconnected, that they didn't do it, just in case anybody drop quotes the tweet, goes, oh! And suddenly Raf, like, waking up and his phone is melted. No. Look, I think if you're going to protest, you're going to have to make your protest count. And the whole point about this was that it attracted attention. It was designed to make sure that the story about the governance of the FAI does not slip off the agenda. if they had protested outside the ground as was recommended by some clowns, then who would have paid any attention? There would have been one photograph. This now is something that everybody talks about. It's on the front of every newspaper. It's on the back of every newspaper. It's a question that will come up again and again. Will this protest happen again? Will the fans use the same mechanism to protest about what's happening? Will they do it at League of Ireland matches? Does this begin to spread? What happens next? But the point is, you cannot ignore what happened last night.
Yeah, and being at the game, you would have missed the halftime analysis on TV, which was Damien Duff against Richie Sadlier, both on other sides of the fence, pretty heavily. No splinters in this debate. Damien Duff questioning why on earth the Ireland fans chose then to do it, why they would do it to actually distract the team in a promising position, and why they would do it at a match full stop, really. Whereas Richie Sadlier was making the exact point that you're making there, which is, if you want to make a protest, the point of a protest is that you get noticed and you actually do it in a meaningful way, and doing it outside of a football match, outside of the ground, would have got nowhere near the amount of coverage it's getting. And ultimately, this is the reason why we will continue to talk about a very important issue in Irish football.
It was 3 of the most exciting moments in Irish football history. Minutes.
Including the finish.
Oh, yeah.
It was perfect.
It builds this perfect crescendo. It's like, I don't know if you saw it on TV, but just before, when the tennis balls are all cleared and everybody's decided that we've stopped, Seamus Coleman gives it the old, ah, to the crowd, and the crowd goes, ah. And then, cool as you like, Horan steps up and pings it into the back of the net. It's like, wow, that's one of the best free kicks we've ever scored.
It was lovely. It was lovely, and he's done it a couple of times for Aston Villa, but I'm glad he saved one of his better ones for Ireland. And like you do, just to reiterate what Glenn Whelan said, you have to give huge credit to Shane Duffy for just standing there.
Yeah,
and
with his big head.
It's kind of like the annoying person in the line for the cloakroom in a nightclub. It's like, what the hell are you doing pushing? Like, we're not going anywhere quicker here. But he managed to have a material impact.
He'd squash you if he pushed you. Right, here's what's coming up on the show this morning. We're going to talk Whelan and tennis. Going to bring you the newspapers. We've done that. So Gary Breen is 8:10. They want to talk to us about the football last night. Mick, Keogh and Rands, it says there, which is Darren Randolph, because we've got to shorten it. It's not because we use players' nicknames. We definitely don't use players' nicknames, sorry. Graham Hunt is going to join us around about 8:35 to talk to us about what's going on at Real Madrid and in Spain, bringing the sports news from Darren at 8:45. Underground darts. This is one of the best stories that we've seen in a long time. And I'm putting aside my dislike of darts for an entire 5 minutes on this morning's show. And then Joey Carbery is Munsters all the way to 2022, according to his new deal anyway. So that's coming up at 9:05. Time now, though, for the newspapers. Right, let's run you through the headlines from the morning newspapers. We're going to start this morning with the Irish Daily Mail. Lift-off. Everybody's happy, it seems, for now. Anyway, Horan Rocket sends Ireland to top of Group D. And FAI board calls meeting as Delaney row grows. That was the whole point of the protest last night, and it appears to be working.
The back page of the Mirror this morning has a tab of the morning to you, Ger. It's how are you being served? Goal hero O'Connor ignores tennis ball protest to fire Irish to vital victory. You've also got Sterling talking about the racism in Montenegro the other night. Shut them up by shutting down the stadiums. Raheem's zero tolerance.
The front of the Star is mixed doubles. Mixed doubles. Also a tab of the morning. Do you get it? Mixed doubles.
I get it. It's actually that I was actually tabbing one to you. Really.
Yeah. So we apologise to the Star subs for not getting a tab of the morning right. Ireland 1, Georgia 0. Dunphy. Mick must find a place for Doherty. I mean, it's true. Could have written that piece before the game. FAI and crisis talks. This is the ongoing drumbeat of the fact that there are talks going on. Game, set and match. Mick's men serve up a treat amid volley of protests. The tennis theme is one that the protesters wanted, and they got. And then an interesting story we'll come back to. Barca all set to bid for Rashford.
The back page of the Herald this morning is Mac on track. 2020 vision intact as Connor strikes to see off Georgia. And you've also got John Aldridge's big match verdict. Mick is our answer to Solskjaer. Baby-faced assassin Mick McCarthy.
One Love to Ireland is the front page headline, and it's a picture of John Delaney and his partner. Come on, you balls in green, is the back page headline. Ireland 1, Georgia 0. Mick McCarthy was beaming as demonstration turned into celebration in double quick time at the Aviva Stadium.
A couple of Munster men on the front of the Irish Examiner. You've got Conor Hourhan, you've got Kevin O'Donovan, and you've got Joey Carbery. Beside Conor Hourhan, you've got Bandon Bullet. Unfazed by tennis ball protest, Hourhan proves Ireland's ace. We'll come back to Carbery in a while, and we'll also come back to Kevin O'Donovan in a little while. Rebel revamp reads the headline at the front of the Irish Examiner sports section. Cork kickstarts GEA debate on championship games without county stars. There's interesting stuff there, and we'll get to that in just a moment.
The front page of the Times Ireland, obviously, who've been leading the way on the John Delaney story, is a picture of John Delaney and his partner Emma English at the 1-0 win yesterday. today. Fans calling for Mr. Delaney to quit the game's governing body, threw tennis balls onto the pitch in protest. They also chanted throughout the duration of the game, stand up for Delaney out was the chant, and it wasn't just the League of Ireland fans behind the goal, it was actually kind of fairly widespread around the stadium at various stages of the game as well. Hourihane's goal is game, set and match. Ireland 1, Georgia 0, and Best uncertain over his future with Ulster. That's a Declan Bogue story that's also carried in several of the newspapers, that Rory Best may actually continue to play for Ulster after the Rugby World Cup is over.
Back page of the Irish Independent is Hourihan the ace in the pack. Superb free kick follows fans' tennis ball protests to send Ireland top of the group. And you've also got that Rory Best story here as well, refusing to rule out the possibility of playing on with Ulster after the World Cup. We've also got Carbery could have waited, but New Deal is statement of intent. And the Breheny beat this morning, as Cork may be in denial, but the truth is they are now in the second tier. He's making the point that if a B championship was introduced this season, Cork would most certainly be playing in it.
So the Irish Times is the picture of the celebration of Conor Hourihan as his teammates, the biggest head in world football, and Glenn Whelan get to him first to celebrate. Ireland find their mojo to leave Georgia bamboozled. We did only win 1-0. We are all getting carried away with a 1-0 win against a Georgia team who, you know, will cause us a lot of difficulties when we go out to Tbilisi if the game is there. But yeah.
Back page of The Guardian is a disaster, is the headline around Raheem Sterling, but the UEFA president Alexander Ceferin has been on the record hitting out at racist targeting of England players, and abuse case at Crewe. They've agreed first payout for Benel victims, so that's a big development there in that story, which Daniel Taylor has been following over the past couple of years. So Texas Stars, golf's finest, looking to shine in Austin Showdown. This is the Racing Post's preview of the WGC Dell Technologies match play, which gets underway today. I would remind you that they did tip that Georgia would probably get something against Ireland yesterday, and how wrong they were after we hammered them by a goal to nil. Flat horses to follow. It's the start of the flat season proper last weekend in Naas. We will be talking about that obviously on Friday Night Racing. Johnson ready to rock on Casbah in quest for dream Aintree win. The national hunt season, reminding you of course that it's not quite finished because still got Aintree and Punchestown to come. There's an interview with Renee Richards leading the way in the Daily Telegraph sports section. The accidental pioneer, it says, how being sport's first professional transgender athlete became my life's work. And Sterling's race warning for English football. Premier League must be ready to shut stadiums in battle to beat bigots, says England forward. They've also got an interview with Justin Rose. It's a big weekend in the golf actually, because you've got Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy on the same side of the bracket. If they both win once, you've got Rory versus Tiger, which would be quite interesting in the match play.
They're both like prone to being crap at match play at various stages.
That's the problem here. But let's just...
And they're both prone to being really good for just random weeks.
Ireland are prone to being crap against Georgia, and all of a sudden they weren't. So
world has turned.
Stranger things have happened.
Just before we get to that, the Irish News. GAA plans to increase the level of funding in Derry City, and then obviously there's a picture of Hourihan Magic bags Ireland 3 points. It's coming up to 4 minutes past 8 this morning here on Wednesday morning's OTBAM. We're with you with all the sports headlines. Where are we going next? What are some stories to get stuck into?
We're going to look inside the Irish Examiner this morning because Tony Lean and Owen Cormack are working on a story from a Cork County Board meeting last night, which is going to revamp the county championship in Cork. And there's a couple of elements in it. It's on page 6 and 7 of the supplement. If you're from Cork, you'll have great interest in all of it. From a national perspective, though, the big talking point is around one of the options that they put forward. So basically, option A for their new championship would be one that's based in April and August. Option B is a championship that's based in August only. But the one we want to focus on is option C, summer games, which basically would be one group game per month from April to July, and then August as well, with 3 or 4 games with county players for full points, 1 or 2 games in May or June without them for half points. So this is a right old shake-up. It's what's on the table, says Tony Lean. To play some of the championship games in summer without inter-county players isn't just left field, he says. It's an important and intriguing proposal, but more than that, it's a conversation starter for every other county association, henpecked and hampered by the 3% of elite players inadvertently dictating the other 97%. So he makes the point that clubs like Douglas, who have a huge amount of players in county teams, probably feel a little bit aggrieved by this because they've had their club structures in order for decades and they've produced top class talent that plays for the county teams, and ultimately their championship prospects will be hampered by the fact that they're away playing with their county during the summer because they want to play summer games. The thing is, as he says there, this is 97% of the GAA body who ultimately don't get a whole pile of meaningful football or hurling during the summer months when you actually want to be playing football or hurling, when you want them to be staying at home if they have an option. It seems like an experiment that should be undertaken. Whether or not this is the final thing to be done, whether or not this is the answer to the malaise of club players at the moment, I'm not so sure, because county players are club players too. 1
group game per month from April with the county players, 2 games in August with the county players, 2 group games in May to July with or without county players for half points. That's not that egregious. It's 2 games and you get half points, right?
Yeah, like
it's kind of the opposite of the Monaghan Star system. Regular meaningful games throughout the summer, more games for club players, more games with the county players, greater revenue across the summer, generous qualification. So it's only 1/3 of your games without your county players, and they only count half. Yeah?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit of a baby step into that realm. But as I say, it's something worth looking at and seeing how...
The negatives there will be some championship games without county players, a grading up of second team players, and a risk of dead rubbers. This is all in the Examiner this morning if you want any of the more specific details of it. And the Cork County Board published the stuff last night in a press release.
The thing is some elements of the Cork setup hasn't not involved relegation at certain points, like ring fencing, top tier hurling and things like that. And it just seems completely nonsensical to me that there are a number of things that needed to be fixed here, first of all. But it's good to see that they're actually going out of their way to try new things, because like we took the piss out of them last month or a couple of months ago for talking about Corkness, but really deeper than that was that report that they talked about when it came to reforming how Cork GAA operates. And it's radical ideas like this that will actually help them out. And every other county in the country should be looking at this thinking, God, this thing could help out. Because let's face it, if you're thinking about a county team perspective, if you have meaningful games in the summer, perhaps that prodigious 19-year-old isn't going on his J1. He might actually stay at home and play his county championship, and suddenly, he could be a county player in a year or two. So there might be like offshoots of development for the county team as well. So it's not just a one-dimensional story, this, and fair play to Cork if they actually implement it.
Yeah, it's clear too that they now have a young, dynamic executive as opposed to Frank Murphy, who they've had in there since the Civil War. So let's move on. We're going to talk about Joey Carbery signed a new contract all the way up until 2022. This is big news for Munster because it means that the Carbery signing hasn't just been a loan signing for 12, 14 months or until Johnny Sexton retires. This does not overlap with Sexton's contract. It's not timed to finish at the same time as Sexton's contract. It's timed to finish a year after Sexton's next contract. So look, maybe Sexton continues on for an extra year, but it looks like Joey Carbery is embracing his new environment.
Well, it's funny. Well, he's in new environment, his home environment now, the environment that he was born to play in. Like, it's interesting, you speak about the loan move that Joey Carbery went on to Munster. At what point does that loan move not look like a loan move in your head?
The bit where he signed a contract that takes him to 2022.
So this is it? You finally let go of the Carbery thing?
Well, I mean, you've stolen a player, you've had no involvement in the... and I suppose that's what happens when you become a province who doesn't, look after your own the way you're supposed to do, who somehow gets away from your Corkness. What happened, Owen? How did they give away those grand traditions? Why is there no more O'Mahony coming through, no more Raj, no more Conor Murrays? Where's the next Conor Murray?
I guess New Zealand can feel particularly aggrieved that they developed this fantastic player and Munster managed to take it. So, I'm sure they'll be waking up this morning thinking to themselves, when is their loan move going to be over? When is Joey Carbery coming back to us? But
great comeback.
Honestly, my heart does go out to you because you have made some legitimate points in this case. Mostly it's been talking nonsense, but
at some point,
ultimately it's a horrible moment for you.
No, not really. It's great for Irish rugby that he's found a home down there, and that I'm sure they will put talent worthy of him around him as well at some point. At some point they'll start developing their own talent though, right? That's what's going to happen here.
Say that again?
He's going to raise the boat that everybody will suddenly... They will be able to get their own talent, as opposed to like fielding an entire Leinster-Ulster backline, which is what kind of they're trending towards at the minute.
Well, I'm not entirely sure about that. Like, you're picking out one or two very high-profile examples, obviously, and...
Chris Henry, or Chris Farrell... there's several of them there.
Joey Carbery and Chris Farrell, one of several people at Munster have not produced themselves. We wanted to move on to the Star because on the back page over there on your side of the desk. They've got Marcus Rashford, Barcelona. A couple of Manchester United stories actually doing the rounds this morning. We'll get to a couple of the other ones in just a moment, but basically Barca all set to bid for Rashford, says the headline there on the back of the Star. I think a £110 million bid.
Euros, yeah.
Euros going to Manchester United from Barcelona, apparently. Rashford in talks to improve his deal at Manchester United, so naturally this story could be floated out there. As I say, one of a couple of Manchester United stories doing the rounds this morning. L'Equipe have this, which is an interesting one. The Special League on, and
that's in English.
The Special League one, actually. I like the English pun for a French reading audience here. So could Jose Mourinho be going to France? Like, for somebody who prides himself, it says, on actually winning league titles, well, it's a home run for Jose Mourinho. He could actually pad his CV nicely by going to Ligue 1.
Yeah, except it's going to be Monaco or Lyon, which, you know, you're up against PSG.
Or
take the PSG job.
Take the PSG job.
Surely PSG are looking around going, no thanks. Look at our glittering array of attacking talent. We would like them to try and score some goals.
Or actually win something. Like, I know it seems like a terrible time to make this argument, given what happened to PSG and who they got knocked out by, a team that had just escaped from the clutches of Jose Mourinho. But does the Jose Mourinho grip become more vice-like if you've got a league that you're flailing about in and you're not actually winning every week? If he is PSG manager, they may not be playing beautiful football, but they might be scoring goals. They might, like, regularly in a more pragmatic way.
If he is the PSG manager, they are less likely to win the league than they are the Champions League. That's what's going to happen. He will poison that team, poison that squad to the point where they can't actually even win the league.
They want to win the Champions League. That's all they care about.
I was wrong about the Mourinho thing. I thought that he still had a little bit of juice left, but I was completely wrong. It turned out he didn't. There's a brilliant dig from Van Gaal about Mourinho. It's aimed at Solskjaer. This is in the Times Ireland edition, written by Oliver Kay. In an interview with BBC Sport, the coach after Mourinho changed to park the bus defensive tactics and played on the counter. Now there is another coach who parks the bus and plays on the counter. The main difference between Mourinho and Solskjaer is that Solskjaer is winning. He says they're the same, but just different. Same, but different. I mean, the difference is that Solskjaer is not an asshole. That's the difference.
Yeah, a happier dressing room. What do you make of John Aldridge's point that Mick McCarthy is Ireland's Solskjaer?
What?
What do you make of John Aldridge's point that Mick McCarthy is Ireland's Solskjaer?
Well, he's not. He's not.
The two comparisons you can make is that, first of all, it's a happier camp. People are smiling, people are joking, it's more jovial. But second of all,
everybody was smiling when Stan arrived. We won 3-0 against Sweden. Everybody was smiling. We scored a great goal. It was brilliant. Everybody was happy. So let's just cool the jets on this.
I'm not sure. Like, with Stan, we really did not know what we were getting, whereas with Mick McCarthy, we very much do know what we were getting, and already it's showing green shoots. But also the Solskjaer comparison. Solskjaer had a pretty nice couple of early fixtures to get his momentum running, and Mick McCarthy also has that.
I'm buying that part of it. A pretty easy start for McCarthy. Away to Denmark in the next game, not so easy, and then we've got Gibraltar at home. So, you know, if we get another 6 points after that, then let's go and celebrate. All right, that is your papers this morning. Before we get to the football last night with Gary Breen, our reporter Enda Cole caught up with some Ireland fans before the game yesterday to get their thoughts on the Executive Vice President of the FAI, John Delaney.
Did you hear the news about John Delaney during the week, or what do you think about it?
I can't believe that they found another job for him. I just think it's disgraceful. I just can't believe it. I tell you, he should be out the door.
He should resign then, should he?
Oh, he should be out the door.
John Delaney is a gentleman. It's only old talk, old politician rubbish. When we were doing great with John Delaney, he was a great man. Now he's a bollocks. It's all shy. Come out and support the country, and that's what I say.
You don't think he should resign then?
No, he shouldn't resign. Why should he resign?
The whole board should go, yeah. Yeah, and he's a clean out. Need a new start, a renaissance. New beginning needs to happen.
You didn't think of protesting and not coming to this game tonight, did you?
No, that'd be absolutely horrendous. What's the point of the fans coming out there throwing tennis balls on the pitch? How's that going to help the team?
No, I didn't bring a few tennis balls, but I still think they should. He should resign, and so should some of the board. Yeah.
No tennis balls from us. It's of no benefit to the players.
And do you think Irish football is in a good place or bad place at the minute?
I think Irish football is always in a good place.
Well, it's a bit of optimism. That was pre-match before we'd actually managed to beat Georgia by a goal. Gary Breen, good morning to you. How you doing?
I'm very well. Good morning, guys.
How did we play last night? What was your assessment of the quality of football you saw?
We played like an Ireland team. We played like a Mick McCarthy team on the front foot. The crowd responded to it. I really enjoyed it. I felt comfortable. I know the scoreline was tight at stages, but it was everything I expected to see, to be perfectly honest. I know everyone talked about how poor we were in Gibraltar, but I never felt that the transition would be that big a job from that to producing what we saw last night, because I know Mick, I know the players are capable of so much more than we've seen over the last couple of seasons. And you can see the mood in the camp has changed. You can see in the energy with which the team play, and the supporters loved it. I thought it was a great night's work.
What about somebody like Glenn Whelan? And you kind of look at his ability on the ball last night, his willingness to pass the ball forward, you know, just the drive and energy that he showed. It does make you a little bit... it makes you lament a little bit for how he has been shoehorned into the team and pigeonholed as somebody who is incapable of doing what we saw him do last night.
Well, the reason you saw him play as well as he did last night is because he's been given a disciplined role to execute. Now, Mick puts a lot of stock on that holding midfielder. He has done it club level. I've experienced it. And as a centre-half, he wants that midfielder who can protect the centre-halves when the full-backs go in advanced areas. And you saw Stevens, Coleman bombing on. I mean, Coleman looked like his old self last night. So I've no surprise about that. But what you also get, because the midfielder in advanced areas, because the forwards are in advanced areas, he's got simple passes that he did not ever have, it seemed, towards the end of O'Neill's tenure, because we were encamped on the edge of our 18-yard box, 9 players, you get the ball, there's no forward passes to be made. So I'm not surprised he played well. He's an experienced player. And I'm sure he's delighted with what he did last night. When
you saw the team last night, there was no Matt Doherty. And what was your initial assessment? Because you'd been on saying that you didn't think that we should can the experiment of playing Matt Doherty on the right side of midfield just yet. That actually it needed another opportunity. And I totally agreed with you. I felt that like last night would have been another opportunity for us to see what that team looked like. But Mick obviously felt differently.
Yeah, listen, as you said, at the risk of repeating myself, I think it can work, but probably the fact that there was only a couple of days training, not even that, to iron out the reasons why it didn't work in Gibraltar is probably why he didn't play. It was too important, this game as such. But he'll have a big part to play. I know people are saying that, we have to get him in the team. But let's not forget, we've had better fullbacks than Seamus Coleman and Doherty, who are battling at right back, like Gary Kelly, Finnan and Carr. You can't play them all. So I do believe he has a role to play, but I don't think we should just shoehorn him in because they're our 2 best Premier League players. Nevertheless, looking at the performances of Brady, I think he's got a long way to go to get back to what we want to see. I think he obviously showed a lot of energy, but within about 60 minutes he's tired, and that's understandable, bearing in mind he's played so little football. But it was at that period, and you could hear Mick barking on orders to Robbie to pick up his man. He wasn't able to do that. It was that period for a couple of minutes that the Georgians then started to play a little bit. So it just highlights how important that every one of those players is on the top of their game, because if we're not as effective.
Yeah, we don't have a whole heap of strength and depth. Is James McCarthy perhaps the successor to Glenn Whelan in that role? I mean, obviously he's already played whatever it is, 60, 70 times for Ireland. So, but is that that role, and it's very well defined, and whenever Glenn Whelan isn't going to be around, that it will ultimately be James McCarthy's job?
I do think there's a big difference. I think James has got a lot more athleticism about him in terms of going forward than Glenn Whelan. Listen, Glenn Whelan is a master of his trade. He knows exactly how to influence a game. There's times when plays heading is in and around ahead of him. He literally turns his back and runs back into that forward position and says, I'm not involved in that. I'll collect you when you come nearer to our goal. So that type of discipline, I'm not sure McCarthy has it in his game, but certainly he's a talented player who you would expect to get into our midfield at one stage when he gets fit.
You've mentioned the word discipline quite a bit there, Gary. Like, how hands-on is Mick McCarthy in terms of giving one-to-one instruction in that way?
Oh, massive. More than anything, Ian, in terms of giving you confidence, belief, saying to you that personality comes out. Now, I said it on Saturday that we saw Hourihan start taking the free kicks, and he's not that comfortable, it seemed, in the Irish squad. But that changed all last night. The very fact that Brady started, but Connor still had the set pieces, was a great plus. And that would have come from Mick McCarthy saying, listen, you've got the quality. I've admired you for a long time. You need to start showing it. Now, in his 11th cap, he looked every bit a central midfielder for Ireland. At times before, he'd been playing in different positions, no real system, no real tactics under O'Neill, so he struggled. But, oh my God, we saw the difference last night. And it wasn't just him. I saw a notable difference in so many players. I question whether or not McLean would struggle a bit because we're up the pitch. He'd have to work in tight areas. He was exceptional, wasn't he, in that second half, driving through tight areas, beating 1, 2, 3 players. And that was impressive. McGoldrick was was just brilliant in terms of the link at centre forward, running in behind, coming short. There were trigger points that when he did come short, we had runners in behind. We just looked like we had numbers, energy, verve. The crowd was with us. I just thoroughly enjoyed it.
The point about Whelan as well, I wonder, is the comfort that he feels from having that relationship at club level with Glenn Whelan. The other kind of thinking about bringing Whelan back in, obviously he needs somebody in that role. We have a ready-made person, you're going to stick him in there, but there's the added benefit then of having that knock on, because it was interesting. Robbie Brady took the first free kick that was in that area, and you're like, oh, I wonder, is this what's going to happen?
He took no corners though, did he, Jay? He took no corners, but he ran over for that free kick.
He did.
As soon as he hit it low into the wall, I thought, you won't be on the next one.
No, and in fairness, I wonder what that conversation is, because it was certainly Whelan and Whelan were straight over to the ball, and there was no doubts. I mean, obviously there was 3.5 minutes for everybody to get their head around what was going to happen, but like Whelan's just standing there going, yeah, I'm going to take this, and we have our plan in place, and it was clearly the right thing to do.
Yeah, and you could see the work they'd done. And even the reaction of Alan Kelly would have been playing a part on it to tell you how difficult it is when Duffy stands on the edge of the wall where you put your position up as a goalkeeper. So he was clearly unsighted. He looked like he was slow to get across the goalkeeper. But take nothing away from the strike. It was brilliant. And even if Duffy weren't there, I think it probably would have tested the keeper anyway. It was the curl and pace of the strike. But I like the fact that he had that personality. I want him to play with that, stick his chest out, to literally say, listen, I'm the main man now in here, and why not? He's playing so well for Villa. He's at an age now where he should be doing that. And I think that would have come regardless of whether or not Whelan's there. I think at times you might look at a club mate and he's alongside you and feel a little bit more comfortable, but I don't believe that. I just think that he now knows he's got a manager more than anything that believes in him.
It seems that the team, just thinking about it there, Gary, is almost picking itself going into, say, the Denmark game, assuming there are no major injuries. It seems that David McGoldrick, after last night's performance, is ahead in the pecking order of Shane Long almost. I know that could be like a fairly big statement. That maybe the only person on last night's performances that might be up for being dropped, for lack of a better term, is Robbie Brady. But even then, when you look at Matt Doherty last Saturday in Gibraltar, it's not an essential swap.
No, but I listen, in terms of how well they've played, that's all you can do as a player, is put a real marker down to protect your position in the team. But having said that, having known Mick McCarthy, if there's a different setup to be done to execute against the Danes and to be successful, then he'll drop anyone. There's no problem about that. It's not a case of you played well, so you're automatically going to start the next game. They'll sit back, they'll review how the Danes play, how they can be vulnerable, and then he'll look at each squad and see who can do that most. So I don't see it ever as it being like, you played well one game, you'll play the next.
Yeah, that was definitely something that you guys had to get used to, wasn't it? Although, you got into Mick McCarthy's team and kind of held your position for a long period of time, and yet there was really intense competition at centre-back. So did you ever get a nod to give you that confidence, or was that just like, it wasn't confidence you were getting picked, it was confidence in your ability, or was it confidence you were getting picked? How did that work?
Well, I think it's a bit of both, isn't it? You've got to have confidence in your ability when you're playing at that level, because no one's going to hold your hand when a whistle goes as such. But then you get it from your manager, you get it from your teammates as well. But listen, that squad, and people keep referencing Mick's initial stint as manager, towards the end, or not the end of when it went bad, but certainly in the build-up to that World Cup in 2002, that squad's, I don't think we're ever going to see a squad of that quality and that strength of depth, again, to be perfectly honest. But nevertheless, I would hope, and I know this in terms of a motivation factor, all those lads who didn't start last night will be encouraged. Listen, come on, in training, you need to be putting pressure on these players. You need to try and get in the team. And if you do perform in training, now, listen, I remember going to the World Cup where I was a first choice for about 4 or 5 years going into that. I think I was injured one game, didn't play the first one of the games leading into it before we went over. I think it was Nigeria at home. I wasn't happy about it. And then I proved it in terms of training, got myself back into the team. So that is what Mick will do. He won't allow any of those players who played so well to just drop down a little bit in training and think, I'm saving myself for the game. That won't be accepted, no chance.
Well, I suppose when you've got Matt Doherty on the bench, everybody's looking around going, Jesus, this guy's in the Premier League Team of the Year and he's not in the team. It has a knock-on impact, because generally, like, a lot of fans, when they saw the team, were like, why the hell can we not somehow get our best player on form in the team? It seemed really counterintuitive, but I guess if you're a manager, you're looking at a slightly different picture and going, well, what is the message this sends out to everybody?
Yeah, but the difficulty is, again, Joe, is that if you want to get him in the team, so it's as basic as saying there's a right-back position available, Seamus or Doherty. So that's the question Ireland fans have got to ask themselves. And we've had it before, like, better players than Doherty and better players than Seamus Coleman didn't play for Ireland before because our right-back options were so strong, the likes of Gary Kenny, I said it again, Stephen Carr, Steve Finnan, they're far better players. That's not being disrespectful to those two guys, because I really, really enjoy watching him in the Premier League. I really enjoy watching him in an Ireland shirt. Not so much Doherty as yet, but I believe I will be seeing him. So they have got a part to play, but it's as basic as that for Mick McCarthy. It will literally be as black and white as that. Now, I do believe that Doherty can play on the right side of midfield in front of Seamus Coleman. The only problem is, and we've seen it last night, is that Seamus Coleman wants to bomb on, and if he does it as well as he did last night, then he's effectively going to block all the areas that Doherty wants to work in. So it is a problem, no doubt. But there were lots of other positives. I don't want to just talk about that dynamic again, those two. The defence, brilliant, squeezing the pitch up. I don't think Duffy particularly likes doing it, but you can hear Keogh barking the orders out. And in squeezing that defence up, it allows our midfield to engage. And the result is what you saw, is that our midfield are right on top of those Georgians. Now, these Georgians are not top-class international players. So if you deny them the opportunity to get their head up, make passes, develop a rhythm, then they're not going to be able to cope. That's not being disrespectful. But the flip side of that, the last time they come into Dublin, is that we did actually make them look like top-class players because we allowed them to sit off us and play. When we then asked the questions, can you do it when there's tight, no space around you, top-class players can these Georgians? No, they couldn't. And that chance that Hourihan had where we smothered them, Hendricks puts a crunching tackle in, Hourihan goes in 1v1. I back his quality to beat the keeper. He should have scored. But if you don't score, you've got to square it to Brady. But even that, look at the numbers, the tempo, the energy we have. That felt like an Ireland team, and the fans really responded.
Yeah, like there were some questions about the Ireland centre halves on Saturday in terms of how high they were playing. It wasn't their fault. It was how Ireland tactically set up and where our midfield was perhaps pushing up a little bit too close to the attack. Last night, positionally, was it perfect from your point of view? Maybe not the execution of it, but as a centre half, would you be happy playing where Shane Duffy or Richard Keogh were predominantly positioned last night?
Well, you have to. If you play for Mick McCarthy centre half, you have to squeeze the pitch. It's not for discussion. It's not about sitting on your 18-yard box, which Duffy, Keogh, all the centre halves have done well under Martin O'Neill. And I'd argue, listen, international football is difficult, but the easiest part is sitting on your 18-yard box with 9 of your teammates around you. And that's what we did. So it's difficult to find space. That won't be acceptable. Got to get up the pitch. They'll do that. I think Duffy can do it. He's doing it in the Premier League, for God's sake. But I just think with Ireland at the time, there's a reluctance. But Keogh's barking the orders out. He's been given that instruction by the manager, by the coaching staff. And he's the type of vocal centre-half who'll demand it. You can see him pushing us up all the time. Duffy takes a bit of time. Even on Saturday, you could see Coleman demanding that those centre-halves got higher up the pitch. In doing so, there's a knock-on offence. Our midfielder are up in advanced areas. We've got support of our forwards. You saw the result. It looks like an Ireland team again.
Yeah, like I just kind of like digging a little bit deeper into that analysis, like the talk always around centre-backs is what's the best partnership. I wonder from an Irish perspective, are we now talking about, for lack of a better term, the best triangle in that position, like Keogh, Duffy and whoever is sitting right in front of them? So we're talking about a Keogh, Duffy, Whelan partnership. Is that something that Mick McCarthy looks at when picking his team?
Yeah, I think so, because I think offensively his priority will be getting numbers forward, and he'll know that Coleman and the Stevens can do that from those fullback positions. But to do that, you need a base, you need some security back there. That holding midfield position, as we said earlier, is so important. It might be someone else who comes in, but to this moment in time, Glenn Whelan knows how to execute. Now, listen, at times Glenn Whelan struggles for athleticism. We've seen that all over the time. So he doesn't want to get exposed against better teams. It might be harder. But definitely they've put a marker down those two centre-halves. The only problem that I would say, the only negative is, again, set pieces. We've conceded 2 opportunities now. Keogh let his man get off him last night. I think Doherty let his man get off for that brilliant Randolph save against Gibraltar. But I would counter that by saying that's just you being out-jumped by your opponent. That's not being out-manoeuvred, out-tactically, not knowing what you're supposed to be doing, like we saw at set pieces for Martin O'Neill. There's a total difference. That unit, that team knows exactly what he's supposed to be doing at set pieces. But Mick McCarthy, we're now saying to those players, you don't get out jumped at corners, it's not acceptable.
Yeah, the other thing is that they obviously know what they're doing at set pieces going forward as well. Glenn Whelan was talking about afterwards how there was a very specific role for various people. He said Shane Duffy has the biggest...
Who knew, Joe? Hey, who knew going into international football that everyone should know their role? Huh? What a genius Mick is.
Glenn Whelan said it helps having the biggest head in world sport in Shane Duffy to block in the wall, and it's like, well, that's a good idea. I wish somebody thought of that before.
Oh yeah, well, listen, it was. I mean, even when it was being set up, you could see. I mean, he's a mountain, isn't he, Shane? In terms of leaning into a wall, but that's naive by the Georgians. First of all, should be making a referee aware of it. Don't get bullied, push him out, make it confrontational, make the referee come over and have a word with you. But they were naive; they didn't see it, and it just looked like it was a nap that it was going to make the goalkeeper make a save.
The other thing that happened last night, which a lot of people probably were only kind of waking up to afterwards, because you see the score coming through from the Switzerland-Denmark game, and it's 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. The Swiss take off Granit Xhaka with 79 minutes gone, and suddenly everything falls apart, and it's 3-0. Like, it's a remarkable result for Denmark, and I'm kind of thinking, I don't know what this means for us.
I don't know how to take it either. I'm not sure if I'd rather the Swiss beat the Danes and we'll go up against the Danes, because Switzerland is just so consistent, have been for a while their qualifying campaigns. I think they qualified for 7 of the last 8 major tournaments. Then they beat the golden generations of Belgium 5-2 at the turn of the year. So, listen, and then they go to Georgia, which is ultimately the fixture that everyone thinks is the potential slip-up. It obviously catered for Scotland in a previous campaign. They couldn't get the result there. So, and they effortlessly went about their business there and getting it done. So to concede 3 goals with 5 minutes to go is an incredible lack of concentration, lack of professionalism.
Yeah, and keeps Denmark alive, and it means that they'll be on a bit of a high. We play them next. Yeah. I know it's months away, and you can't really carry momentum from these little windows into the next one. It's just like, this was good, the next one has to be good, and we have to kind of treat them as back-to-back fixtures. So, like, obviously we're top of the table. You want to be at top of the table as long as you possibly can, preferably at the very end of the entire thing. So you got to take it when it comes.
Oh, listen, absolutely. I think in terms of Mick coming in, the first 2 games were identified, just get 6 points on the board. Everyone was talking about the performance of Gibraltar. I didn't really. We need to play better, there's no doubt. And Mick McCarthy, as much as he would have said, listen, let's get in, let's get out with the 3 points, he wouldn't have brushed over how people performed. He would have still reviewed it and said, that ain't good enough. I don't care about the conditions. Privately, he would have said to them players, that's not good enough. You're international players, you need to perform better than that. But 6 points, and an opportunity now to step away, to regroup. And I have no doubt in my mind, all those players now, even the ones who didn't start, in terms of the camaraderie that's been created, the atmosphere, will be absolutely desperate to get back on that plane and get back over and meet up for the next international in a way that we were led to believe wasn't the case under the previous regime. That's great. Even the protests last night, and I was watching the game, and suddenly the tennis balls come on, and you're thinking, lads. But as soon as they cleared it, did you hear the roar of that crowd before the game started? Now, even I started getting goosebumps thinking, I remember that so much at Lansdowne, where there was periods where were a little bit difficult, then the roar would come up, and you literally turn around to your teammates and say, come on, lads, let's go, we're ready. And it was brilliant to see. I was so proud of the fans last night.
I don't know if you saw Seamus Coleman, actually, when the tennis balls were cleared off, he went to the crowd, come on, like that, and that was kind of, so they were responding to the players, and the players were responding to what had happened, and then Horan sticks it in, and I said earlier on, it was like 2 of the most exciting minutes in Irish football that we had in a very long time, basically since Robbie Brady's goal against Italy. Just on the protests, so there was split opinion. It was like they shouldn't be involving themselves in the game, and then ultimately there's no point in making a protest unless you involve yourself in a way that are going to get people talking about it.
Exactly. You've got to be given a platform, and that is what it is there. So people could say, oh, it's stupid and stuff like that, and yeah, to a certain extent it is. But they're not going to have their voice heard. So it's not a case of like, if they started doing it out in the street, it would be brushed aside. Now they've given themselves like a topic of conversation. They've made their feelings known, which supporters should do. But I'm not condoning doing something like that. But what was great is that they did it. It was done, and then bang, straight away, right, we're back behind the lads. And even if you spoke to a lot of the Ireland supporters going into it, prior to that, and the talk of it being far more a bigger moment of demonstration as such, you heard the Ireland fans say, no, it's about the lads, it's about the lads. And I've never doubted that in terms of how much the supporters helped that team, because I've experienced it. And that was a major disappointment for me, was that disconnect between the supporters and the team towards the end.
Good stuff, Gary.
And that was one of the priorities that he had to get, and he got it, Mick.
Good stuff, Gary. Thanks for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Cheers, lads. Bye.
Gary Breen giving us some thoughts on what happened last night.
I don't want to say it too soon, but that Swiss defence looked absolutely chaotic at the conclusion of that game last night. Like if Ireland were defending like that under Mark O'Neill and Roy Keane, we would be protesting with torches and pickets, pigs' heads, and we would probably have a horse's head at the base of Mark O'Neill's bed had we defended like that in their regime. They were bad at the end. They bottled that spectacularly. So hopefully there's just a couple of seeds of doubt that go into their mind. Unfortunately, we don't play them next. But the crucial thing here is that the qualifying campaign is shorter than any other qualifying campaign we've ever had. Momentum, I know you hate the word, can be a real thing here.
All right, brilliant competition for you this morning. We've teamed up with Leia Healthcare, the official health and wellbeing partner to Leinster Rugby, to launch Wellbeing Wednesday. One lucky winner per week will win a Blue Book voucher for €250 for their very own wellbeing retreat. This week, we've got 2 tickets to add for the Leinster-Ulster European Cup quarter-final this weekend in the Leia Healthcare box. Best seats in the house, featuring a live pre-match broadcast with Off the Ball and special guests. All 9 winners this week will go into the draw, and one lucky winner will receive a wellbeing hamper and a Leinster season ticket for the 2019-2020 season. To enter, just tell us who scored Leinster's first try in the 2012 Heineken Cup final against Ulster. So that's the game at Twickenham. Leinster absolutely annihilate Ulster in the Heineken Cup final in 2012. Just tell us who scored Leinster's first try that day. Contact us with your answer on any of the OTB social channels using the hashtag It's Good to Live. Okay, before we move on, let's hear from Darren Randolph. Another clean sheet for Ireland, and he was right at the centre of the tennis ball protest from the Irish fans last night.
No, there was given a heads up yesterday, so I was expecting it. I just didn't know it was going to be the start of the game and the end of the game, so I totally forgot by the time the tennis ball did come on the pitch. Well, at first I was looking around, I was just looking for some help, someone else to come and clear the tennis ball. I better start kicking some off because it's going to waste a bit of time. Thankfully I got some help and they were gone.
What's been the message since he's come in, like ahead of the 2 qualifiers? You could see tonight there was more emphasis on maybe not going direct as much maybe as we did with the previous manager.
Organisation, again, work hard, run yourself into the ground, play when you can play, put them under pressure when you need to, and that was his message.
What about that chance that they had at the end where hit the post? You'd probably tell me you had it covered.
Of course, inside the post I would have saved it. If they're lucky enough it goes to hit the post and we got away with it, and stayed 1-0 up.
What about the news today as well? You got into the championship team of the season. Don't know if you were aware of that, were you?
I was aware before the game.
Okay.
I've this game to think about, so I was trying to block it out of my head. But thanks for reminding me.
Nice little accolade, though.
Yeah, it's nice. It's been probably one of my best seasons. It's been a great season for me. So hopefully it continues.
Yeah, that's great. He's a good lad.
He is, and an outstanding goalkeeper. Probably on the back of 2 performances, Ireland's player of the campaign so far. Conor Hourhan.
Yeah, I mean, at different ends, very, very, very important. Graham Hunter, good morning to you. How you doing?
Morning, gentlemen.
We're all basking in the afterglow of 6 points from 6 in the international window. How are Scotland faring, Graham? What's going on with you?
Oh, I'm on camera. Lads. He who laughs last. No, okay. Kazakhstan wasn't one of our glorious moments. But we're at a stage where, and you would recognise this, and I love the way that your generosity, your Celtic generosity, means you over the years have come back towards us. That's avoid that. You lose 3 or 4 top players, and you go out 1 or 2 defensive errors. You go 2-0 down, and you don't have people who know how to pull it back. It was a display that was horrible to watch, and it's left the players, I think, battered and hurt in terms of their confidence, because even though we're only talking about Albania and Israel, the last couple of performances in the autumn were very good, and there was a lot of football, and there's a lot of football to come from this group. And therefore, rather than be jingoistic, which there's not really much point in doing after so many matches of hurt across my lifetime, I genuinely think we have a group now which, if well led, will take us to second place in the group. And given how we've started, that's a big ask. But I think that the quality's there. And if we fail to do it, the great thing about this group is that they're of an age, they're of a mindset, and they're of an experience. They could do with more Champions League experience, clearly. But I think that the group is solid. I genuinely think that we have levels of talent which, if they don't quite allow us to be wildly excited, then definitely optimistic. So the start was very poor, Ger, and just like the Kazakhs' third goal, that was a cheap shot.
Sorry about that. Couldn't resist it. Okay, I'm not. Let's talk about Sergio Ramos. You've been writing about Sergio Ramos and his penalty-taking prowess, and it turns out you've noticed a pattern.
You haven't done any kind of caution, adults warning for Liverpool fans in this, are you? Are they booing now? It was absolutely brilliant the other night, because Malta is such a stronghold of Premier League affections. Okay, admittedly, more heavily Manchester United than Liverpool. Ramos was booed every time he touched the ball in Malta last night. Absolutely fantastic. The reason I wrote about him was I was down at Mestalla watching Spain squeak through against Norway in a game that made them sweat. And he took this panenka chip penalty, which if you watch him, and he's taken 10 penalties this season. It took him a long time to become a registered penalty taker, because there was always people in his way for the national team. There would have been Xabi Alonso or Raul or Villa for his club sides. It would have been Van Nistelrooy and Raul again, and Ronaldo, etc. So therefore, although he's always been very adept technically, he hasn't had the chance until Cristiano Ronaldo moved away. And 10 this season, of which 4 have been chips, but his technique's identical, and his technique has changed over the years. And you get the feeling, and poor old Rune Jarstein dived to his right. Spain won 2-1. The crucial moment of that match was Ramos against Jarstein. And you knew he was going to chip this one, and Jarstein knew, but still dived. And I spoke to the keeper. What inspired writing the column was standing talking to this big 6'3" Norwegian goalkeeper in the tunnel in Mestalla afterwards. And his eyes were that, it wasn't that it was 1,000 yards stare, it was 1,000. He was absolutely disgusted to have lost, but disgusted in himself too. And I asked him, I said, how do you confront? Because I've had some penalty experience in conversations this season, in that I've asked both Messi and Suarez about their techniques when they chip penalties. And Messi was very clear. He said, listen, I saw the keeper. That was the game against, it was certainly a Champions League game, so I'm presuming it was the game against Lyon, let's say. And Messi said, I saw the keeper move. But Ramos decides in a way which is based upon his own run-up and his own instincts. And there's a tell. So on Saturday night, I could tell it was going to be a chip. And Jarstein said that he'd spent the whole day thinking about what happens if Spain get a penalty and Ramos takes it. And he'd done his video studying, as all goalkeepers and analysts do these days. He knew the percentage of chips that Ramos did, and he decided he'll try to chip me. And therefore, and he even spoke to a friend of his, Jarstein, to say, listen, do you think I'm making the right decision here? I've got this drilled in my head. And the friend said, yeah. And he decided right up until the point at which Ramos plants his right foot and is then about to strike with his right foot. Jarstein suddenly went, I'm going right. And he went right. And he just, at the end of the interview, he said to me, and it was a bad decision. And it was. And it fascinated me. So I went and studied his penalties, Ger. And his technique is interesting. And there is a tell. And therefore, goalkeepers, if they've taken the time to read my beautiful column, will now be able to save Ramos's penalties without a bother.
And there's Ramos sending the boys round to your gaff for the horse's head in the bed anytime now.
Whoa. Have you not been watching? Sergio comes round himself. I've actually, my shoulder's kind of dislocated already, vicariously. Oh no, listen, there's a tell, and if anybody wants to know what it is, as he runs up, 6 steps back, 1 to the left, depending on his mood, because he varies the length of his strides, 3 or 4 steps forward, plants the right foot, and then kicks with the right foot, lifting it immediately. But the right foot before it plants either does a little flick, a little donkey kick backwards, and that means you know he's going to chip, or he drags the toes of the right boot along the ground before he plants the right boot and then shoots. That means it's going normally his left, keeper's right. And it's about technique. I called it a tell because I like that sells quite well, and people are into poker these days. But what the man has got is technique, and he's a technically very good footballer. And part of it was inspired from having been able to watch Spain train so much and seen how competitive he is. I've always loved players competing with each other after training, doing tricks, doing free kicks, penalty competitions, whatever it might be, head tennis. I love that. And we don't we, the journalists and the public listening today, don't get to see that enough. And football could do itself an enormous favour if we're not allowed to see the draconian secrets of a training session, and film some of the post-training stuff for the fans and let them see players fooling around and fooling on their technique. It makes great viewing.
Yeah, for sure. A couple of other rumours in the papers this morning that we just wanted to get your quick take on. Rashford to Barca is on the back of the Irish Star this morning, saying that 110 million euros is the fee. Anything in this? Is this Marcus Rashford's agent trying to get a new contract for Marcus Rashford just after they signed one recently?
I don't know where the story was written or who wrote it. So without jumping on them, my point of view would be threefold. Number one, Rashford fits exactly the profile of what Barcelona want and need. Two, they don't have 100 million, and they're going to buy De Ligt if they possibly can, at which point, even if they sell well, the money supply is more than run out. And finally, without claiming to know him intimately, I have interviewed Rashford a couple of times. I think he's so dedicated to Manchester United that it would shock me rigid if he left. And therefore, I can't put a lot of weight in this line. And it's either helping Rashford or guesswork, in my opinion.
Okay. And then the Gareth Bale situation. What is Bale's relationship with Zinedine Zidane? How quickly will something happen here, do you think, now?
Well, I can answer that question, but I haven't read it, but is there a story? I was briefed that there was a story saying Zidane is going to kick him out. Is that the basis of the chat?
I think it's that Zidane wants Eriksen, and that's to fund Eriksen. You were reading this morning.
They're two separate stories. Okay. So as has the story that they will get rid of Gareth Bale this summer, that obviously Perez signed him, Graham, as you well know, and like the question I have is he still a Perez player, and to what does that actually mean at this moment? Because I would say if Zidane doesn't like a guy, that would pretty much supersede what Florentino Perez will do, and Zidane, it seems from the AS article, will be the person who will be taking the decision to sell him. Now the article doesn't go into any detail about whether there's been a rift or whether he actually specifically dislikes Bale, but very clearly the article does say that Perez signed him, Zidane will sell him, so I think we can take our own learnings from that.
Yeah, I think, listen, it's absolutely essential for anybody who wants to understand it that Gareth Bale's in the power seat. And any reporting that doesn't stem from that point of view seems to me to be ill-advised or downright stupid. It doesn't matter which country it's coming from. Gareth Bale signed a contract until, I think, 2023. That means that he has all the power. I would also point out that until now, it has bothered him not a jot what people say about him, that the club want him to play less golf during the football season. It has bothered him not a jot. The fact that twice now, just as when he turned Ryan Giggs down, when Ryan Giggs was David Moyes' assistant, and said, come here and we'll pay you more money and we'll pay Spurs the same money as Real Madrid, and he said, no, I'm going to Real Madrid. He turned the same deaf ear to two attempts by Real Madrid to kick him out, to move him on. They wanted Mbappe, they wanted Neymar, they wanted him to move out, they wanted to generate the cash, they wanted to clear a space. And Gareth Bale just went no. As far as I understand Gareth Bale's point of view about staying in Madrid and how much he loves the life there in Madrid and how much Real Madrid pay him, and the fact that he consistently not only wins trophy but influences the winning of those trophies, means that the power is entirely in his hands. He can be told to leave, he can be treated with a cold shoulder, and until they actually say, we're not going to give you a pass to play, we're not going to name you as part of our squad, the power is entirely in Gareth. And people can manufacture stories about generating cash for Gareth Bale to buy other players if they want. But until they're absolutely clear that Bale has had it up to here and has had enough with treatment or not playing, then they're wasting their time. And at the moment, I don't believe that Gareth Bale feels like that one, and I think that's the fundamental point.
Graham, great point to finish on. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Graham Hunter with us there, getting some thoughts on some big stories. Rashford to Barca, Bale not leaving at the moment, or certainly it'll be his decision.
A
long old contract.
It's a long old contract. Like it's going to be Manchester United or Bayern Munich according to those reports.
It's 8:49 this morning here on hashtag OTBAM, the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. We've got Darren Cleary in studio next with sports news. First though, Stephen Ward was on commentary duty for us last night for Ireland's 1-0 win against Georgia. Before the game, Joe obviously got a chance to ask him about those WhatsApps and what happened. Have a listen.
I would suspect your WhatsApp game has gone downhill in the last 10 months or so.
As a little bit, yeah.
I'd say much more cautious, far less going on WhatsApp. What was your reaction when you realised this thing had gone public and in a WhatsApp way had just spread like horrible wildfire?
To be honest, I couldn't even remember it. It was 6-7 weeks before it actually came about.
Was that right?
It wasn't even a story then, and obviously,
it was 6-7 weeks after you had sent it to your mates that it suddenly appeared in public.
I think it was in the summer, and then it was listen, it was one of them things. Bit of naivety for me, but it's a group I have with my close school friends, and I was actually telling them it was less than what they thought had actually happened. So just one of them things. And once the Harry Arden thing came out, it appeared. So
what's that day like when that reaches? I'd say that's home and close the curtains and ham to face.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but listen, I'm old enough to learn from mistakes and face up to things when it happens. So it's, whatever happened, I tried to calm it down as much as possible, but for whatever reason that didn't seem to go. So you just move on. There's a lot worse things happening.
No one died. Exactly. It wasn't the end of the world. When you spoke to Roy, I presume he was like, "Thanks a lot, mate."
Yeah, he was delighted. Yeah. but honestly, that's the problem.
Did you ring him or did he ring you?
He rang me, but that's probably the most disappointing thing, because I had such a good relationship with Roy. That really got on great with him. Really enjoyed working with him, and just for whatever reason, it was a mistake, and but life goes on.
Was that consistent with did that kind of get worse as the tenure went on, or was Roy likely to have the outburst all the way along and it was just part of the landscape?
Not really. I think that the reason that one became such a story was because
Harry Arter stayed out of the squad then.
Yeah, I think that I think these things happen in football. Obviously sometimes it can be worse than what you might expect, but most of us just get on with it, and unfortunately obviously Harry pulled out of the squad, and then it became a massive story.
Yeah,
I probably bear the brunt of that.
Here you go. It's the background to one of the best WhatsApp stories of all time. One of the best. Darren, how are you?
Never record lengthy WhatsApp voice notes. They come back to bite you. The Republic of Ireland manager Mick McCarthy says Seamus Coleman will continue as his first choice right full for the Euro 2020 qualifiers. The boys in green made it back-to-back wins following up the unconvincing win over Gibraltar by beating Georgia 1-0 last night. Conor Herahan's wonderful left-footed free kick was the winner, and that was Ireland's first goal on home soil in 4 matches. Matt Doherty has been in great form for Wolves this season, but having failed to impress in the first game, McCarthy has strongly hinted that he will be playing second fiddle to Coleman.
Seamus Coleman was different class. Doc came on and did a job. Simple as that. I'm unlikely to play them again as I did on Saturday. But then I might, because that's, I said it's unlikely, because it means to an end sometimes. Thought it might work on Saturday, didn't particularly. But he went on and did a good job just helping us stop them from scoring when Robbie had run out of steam.
Now, James McLean has urged anyone not committed to the Republic of Ireland to sod off and play for someone else. The FAI's Young Player of the Year, Declan Rice, made his England debut in the 5-1 Euro 2020 qualifying win over Montenegro on Monday. Despite winning 3 senior caps and representing Ireland at every underage level, Rice defected to England. McLean says Ireland are better off without players who are aiming to use them as a stepping stone. He told RTE, Rice said he was a proud Irishman, then he said he was a proud Englishman. If he's both, good luck to him, but I don't buy it. I think you're either one or the other. I was with Derry City when I got the call up to play for the North, and I turned it down because it's not my country. It's never been my country. I'm an Irish man. If you're not proud to be here and we're a stepping stone, then sod off and play for someone else. McLean, quoted by RTE, is saying, we only want players here who want to play for Ireland, who feel Irish and proud to be Irish. UEFA have opened disciplinary proceedings against Montenegro after England's footballers were racially abused by their fans earlier this week. Monkey chants were directed towards Danny Rose and Callum Hudson-Odoi during the 5-1 win in Euro 2020 qualifying. European football's governing body will hear the case on the 16th of May. Manager Gareth Southgate doesn't believe punishing the fans will fix problems blighted by the game.
Sanctions are worthless if there is nothing alongside that to help educate people. My kids don't think for 1 minute about where people are born, what language they speak, what colour they are. There's an innocence about young people that is only influenced by older people. we have to make sure that the education is right for everybody. In our country, the same. I've said this before, I'm not sitting here just criticising what's happened tonight, because in our country we have the same issue. We're not free of it. And you can sanction clubs, but frankly that's not going to stop one or two people who are of a mindset from doing what they want to do. We have to make sure that we educate young people, because we have a better chance with young people, and then we've got to lead that as far and as wide as we possibly can.
Louis van Gaal has accused Manchester United of being a commercial club and not a football club. In a BBC interview, he's also taken aim at United's Executive Vice Chairman Ed Woodward, accusing Woodward of undermining his authority by lining up Jose Mourinho to replace him. Van Gaal claims success on the pitch is of secondary importance to the commercial success at the club, which he says Alex Ferguson also has a problem with. In rugby, Leo Cullen believes Ulster's familiarity with Leinster makes their Champions Cup clash much tougher to navigate. Their provincial rivals stand between the Blues and a place in the semi-finals of the competition. Cullen feels much of Ulster's play is built on how Ireland set up.
I think they're very pragmatic the way they approach the game. They're good at holding on to the ball, which makes them a constant threat because they have possession. You can see defensively they work very, very hard for each other. Their defensive system, I think, with Jared Payne as their defence coach, is quite similar to the way Ireland defend, taking a lot of things from Andy Farrell, I would imagine. So they're stuck in games well, and it's the thing that probably stands out most is their ability to win so many tight games.
Rory McIlroy says his career will not be defined by winning the Masters. McIlroy has arrived in Austin rested and ready for the WGC match play after taking a week off. Following his win at the Players' Championship, the Masters just 2 weeks away, but the four-time major winner says he has adopted a new approach to the elusive career Grand Slam. McIlroy is focusing on playing well as opposed to worrying about winning.
I haven't been able to do that the last couple of years. Is when my match on Wednesday, so that's the first step in the process. If I win 7 matches this week, that would be awesome, but we'll see what happens. Winning tournaments, getting to number one, all those accolades, it's a byproduct of doing all the little things right, and I feel like I'm doing the little things right, and step by step they will add up to all that stuff that other people find important.
And finally, the United Nations say plans to classify female athletes by their testosterone levels contravenes international human rights. Olympic 800-metre champion Caster Semenya is challenging the IAAF's ruling. They want female athletes with naturally high testosterone levels to race against men. The UN called the plans unnecessary, humiliating and harmful. Semenya's camp issued a statement last night accusing the IAAF president Seb Coe of opening old wounds. Coe claims the ruling is for the protection of fair competition and fair play. Semenya's camp say the scars Miss Semenya has developed over the past decade run deep. She has endured and forged herself into a symbol of strength, hope and courage. Reading the comments of Mr. Coe this weekend opened old wounds. It continued, Miss Semenya is a woman. There is no debate or question about this, and the IAAF does not dispute this. She was born a woman, raised a woman, socialised as a woman, and has competed as a woman her entire life.
All right, Dan, good stuff. Thanks for that. It's funny how you always find yourself thinking, which side is South Coe on? I'm probably on the other side of that one. Right, it's 8:58 a.m. this morning. You're listening to OTBAM. If you're consuming us live from the Off The Ball website, offtheball.com, you can just hit the listen button and we'll be the sports radio show that you didn't know you needed, but now you're absolutely delighted it's here on mornings like this. Or if you want to see us, if you want to see the whites of our eyes, the bleary, bloodshot whites of our eyes, then you can also log on to offtheball.com and hit the watch. And we're also live on YouTube, on Periscope and on Facebook as well every morning. Right now we're bringing you inside Dublin's underground darts club. Really, you just have to see this to believe it. Here's a report by Luke Redmond and James Nolan.
Walking into a seemingly derelict construction site on Dublin's Camden Street, it would be fair to assume the only people who spend any time here are builders. However, buried deep underneath is a Dublin darting underground. Started over a decade ago by founding member Damien McAvoy, their once coveted four-board social darting setup has been reduced to no more than a cluster of darts hidden amongst the construction site. We spoke to Damien to get some context on this unique setup after 10 long years of TNDC.
Yeah, well, it started organically, and we had 4 people who just turned up here when it used to be a fully functioning bar 10 years ago. Virtually is nowhere else in the city centre where you'll be able to play. Certainly there's nowhere else that has a 4-board setup or anything close to it.
Current head of TNDC, John Delaney, was keen to stress to us the social focus of the club and how a passionate darting membership was key to their longevity, as well as highlighting the club's open nature. So, what would you say to somebody that would describe this as a darting underground? You're playing here, hidden away on Camden Street on a construction site, basically.
It probably is. It's very unique. People are probably looking at us coming in and out going, what are they doing? But we're open to anyone that's not better than us. It's very much social. Once a week, we all get together. Love of darts and just with mates. Everyone's mates here. Good banter, good fun. Love the darts.
Next, we caught up with the current TNDC World Champion, Stephen Jones, who shed some more detail into what darts on a construction site was like and how the players press ahead regardless of the conditions.
Interesting, to be fair. It's always a footfall ready to happen, but at the same time we've had this premises now for the last few years. Before it's been going down, and now it's like you say, a bit of a building site, but apart from the cold, it's pretty good. Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, to be honest, there's not many social darts clubs around where, you know, lots of people want to play very competitively. There's lots of leagues around, but maybe that's not for everybody. And if you want to play darts socially, it's really not something that's very big here. It's obviously massive in the UK, but not so much in Dublin.
Damien then shared with us some frustrations he had with why darts was becoming a rarity in Dublin in the modern pub, despite being the game's ultimate birthplace.
It takes up a lot of square footage relatively that you would normally pack people in, drinking €7 pints. So this goes against the grain in that it's not quite that price.
Despite the extreme conditions, Stephen was also keen to stress that the term darting underground was purely subjective, and TNDC was all about fun at the end of the day.
I mean, the fact that we're not a registered club per se in a league, I guess you could argue it's an underground club. But as you can see, there's a great group of people here who want to come together and play. If that makes it underground, so be it.
After an eye-opening trip into the secret Dublin darting club, it was time to part ways with TNDC. It's clear that the passion for darts exists here, and without a doubt, there's still a bright future ahead. Luke Redmond and James Nolan reporting for Off the Ball.
Yeah, wow. Luke Redmond and James Nolan putting that together for you. You can read about it on offtheball.com. And I presume if you want to go along and play a bit of underground darts, they're more than welcome to.
Do you bring your own cans, or where are they getting the pints from?
There's a pub, I think you walk out and walk back in.
Oh, that even better.
Smuggle them in. I know it's not even smuggled.
BYOB darts would be something I'd be interested in. I wonder, has John Delaney, the head of TNDC, changed his position to Executive Vice President of TNDC this week? Because he definitely should.
Yeah. How did everybody get the tennis balls in?
Sellotaped to a part of your body that they may not check.
I don't remember being searched walking in.
I suppose, yeah, it's never a body search, is it? It's metal detectors. Is there even metal detectors at TNDC?
It was pretty relaxed, considering there was like reports that this might happen.
Like you could like wear a belt of tennis balls.
Bring a kid. That's because like, you're kind of get ushered through and everybody helps you.
Yeah, they'll definitely check your backpack, won't they?
So I didn't have a backpack. I should have brought a backpack to see what was.
Well, I'd say backpack is a bit of a red flag if you want to stop tennis balls coming in. Who knows? Maybe loads of tennis balls did get confiscated and only a fraction of them got thrown onto the pitch.
If you're not boozing, it's not a great experience.
What, being at the Aviva or showing tennis balls?
Being at the Aviva. We queued for like 25 minutes to get a bottle of water when we arrived. We arrived at about 7:15 and just made the anthems. And I was like, I set off from home an hour and a half and the traffic was crap. And so I brought my daughter for the first time. So she's 7 and it was like, you know, big experience. But it's hard to buy just a bottle of water. Like, and certainly they didn't have a place where you can just walk up. I mean, maybe I could have gone to the bar and gone, give me a pint of water, and that would have been the right thing to do, because they lash the pint out pretty quick. But in the place where you're buying the drinks, soft drinks, it's food as well. And wasn't the fastest at lashing out the food, I'd have to say.
More staff, more stands needed?
I mean, it's not like, especially in those evening kickoffs, everybody wants some food because they've come straight from work.
What's your thoughts on the American version of people actually coming to your seats with snacks?
I mean, yes.
Well, it's obvious, but like...
What's my thoughts? It's like, wow, humanity seems to be progressing quite well in this part of the world. Maybe we could have another one of these ideas that we just yoink.
Do you think it's fair that you're not allowed to bring your pint in for a soccer game into your seat?
Versus rugby, where you're like positively encouraged to drink your head off.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I think it's mad. I think it's the type of weird classist nonsense that somehow infiltrates Irish society in these weird little beep, 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 secret code.
So there's not enough people at Irish soccer games anymore to even cause trouble. So I think let them in with their pints.
Yeah, it was a weird atmosphere. It was good in part, but it was kind of pretty, like, not having away fans doesn't help, because we were down that end. We were down the end. The goal was scored, and empty seats, a few empty seats around us. But like, if the Georgia fans had, you know, spent a year's average industrial wage from Georgia to come to this game to see their team playing in Dublin, which obviously it wasn't ever going to happen, then there would have been atmosphere there. But you need the away fans to create that atmosphere down that end of the stadium. And if they're not going to be there, then you probably should put Irish fans there.
Yeah, and also there is the sense that this is also the start of the reign. People weren't necessarily buying tickets to go see what would be the new era. I'm sure people did, but it wasn't going to sell out a stadium. Whereas for the next round of home matches, you'd imagine there'd be a big boost, given the performance they put on last night. So it's a financial boost for the FAI, last night's performance, I'd imagine. It has to be.
Oh, massively. Well, if they'd lost, everybody would have thought the group was over. Like, it doesn't help that Denmark away is the next game. If we Denmark at home, they'd be like, oh, well, that's definitely going to sell out. But
do we want to get negative for a moment about last night, or realistic, a bit more realistic?
Yeah.
Like, Ireland were brilliant last night. They were really
brilliant.
I thought, okay, so maybe the bar set low.
Yeah, bar set low. We weren't brilliant. We were decent.
There was two across the newspapers this morning. The average going rate is about two players getting sixes. The rest of them were all 7 and above. And we beat Georgia 1-0. Now, granted, it could have been more potentially. That again, we could have conceded. The thing is, with that same team, it will need to be 7 as a very base level. Most people on an 8 or 9 to get 3 points in either venue against either Switzerland or Denmark. You could maybe get a 1-1 at home.
Yeah, we can't get through this group with just draws home and away against the other seeds, the top seeds in the group, and just beat everybody else. That won't be enough. All right, well, we've plenty of time to talk about that. I feel an ambush coming on here. We're talking Joey Carbery next with Neil Treacy. Here's an OTBAM flash. I haven't seen this, so I don't know what this is going to be. I'm a little bit worried. This is from September 2018.
Very interested to get your take on what you felt when you saw Joey Carbery at the weekend. But I can tell you, on page 22 in the Irish Times, Jerry Thornley is writing, Carbery's time in red could extend well beyond 2 years. And my favourite line in this, particularly for the Thai man I have in studio with me, is this. When Blackrock and the Leinster Academy can each claim some small slice of Carbery, his family and rugby roots are essentially in Athy, which is not a million miles from Munster. Depending on how he takes to Munster and they to him, and how in the meantime Leinster progress without him, this arrangement could extend well beyond 2 years. So, Ger, I regret to inform you, you're from a place that isn't too far from Munster. You're basically a Munster man, so feel free to jump ship at any time and get on the red jersey. The invitation's still there. Come join us. Come be with us. Get in the boat.
You're such a cock.
Like, it's a far, isn't it, Neil? You're welcome, by the way. How are you doing, guys? It's a far better life where we come from as rugby fans of Munster. It's just...
Are you a rugby fan, are you?
Yeah, well... for the purpose of the Joey Carbery conversation.
Hey! It's like the early 2000s again, the bandwagon's back.
It's nice to paddle away on this bandwagon, this boat.
I forgot the Munster fans hate... The hierarchy of hatred is like... Leinster fans, Munster bandwagoners are like below Leinster fans on the totem pole. They'd much rather have a rugby conversation.
I'll tell you,
Leinster fans.
I'll tell you now. I've been a Munster bandwagon since at least 2006.
At least.
It could have been 2005, but I've been a Munster fan since 2006. So you know, I'm an early bandwagoner, but a bandwagoner all the same.
Do you know what you're like, actually?
There's room.
My dad, Kerry man, a GA man through and through. Yeah. He retired there last summer, so we decided we'd chip in, we'd get him a Munster season ticket for the season. He liked rugby, you know. Wouldn't have gone too much before. We got him a season ticket. Delighted though. Last week, renewed it himself.
Wow.
Wow.
There you go.
He's on the bandwagon, he's staying on it.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's what a good Munster man like Joey Carbery will do for the fans.
Exactly, yeah. Leads us on nicely into the conversation.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is big news for Munster, right? Because it's like a proper... There must have been some concern that this was a convenient, arranged marriage that would last as long as the World Cup and then all bets are off.
Yeah, and I think the timing of it is great as well because, like, it was a 2-year deal initially, so if this wasn't wrapped up before the end of this season, you're heading into a World Cup, and I'd say all of a sudden people probably would still start be asking, so Joey, what are you going to do at the end of the season? Are you heading back up the M7 to head back to Leinster, or are you going to hang around for another couple of seasons? And to have that basically done and dusted with no more talk of it for another couple of years, it's just brilliant for Munster fans to sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah, you do wonder about, from the players' individual perspectives, would you not wait and see how your World Cup goes and then kind of go, oh, look, I've got a phone call here from Racing. Oh, there's Stad. Oh, Toulon. Oh, it's like, no, just from a pure financial perspective?
Probably, yeah, but at the same time, he's still a very young man. He obviously has aspirations of getting further up the pecking order at Ireland, and, you know, his long-term ambitions of being Ireland's first choice out half. The move has gone very well from so far. The fans absolutely love him so far. He's clearly linking in well with the team, and they're starting to play more around him as well. He's been given, you know, he's given license to kind of do his own thing a little bit in midfield there, and I think it's just probably a move that suited him so far. And, you know, just get it out of the way. Have your near future wrapped up for a couple of seasons.
From a position at the kind of start of last year when Tyler Blendall's injury problem looked like they weren't going to clear up, it looked like this was a long-term position of weakness for Munster. It has now, given that Blendall is fit again and coming back to something akin to his best form, it's now a position of real strength where it's like, so you have in Carbery a transcendent talent who it looks like is going to hopefully go on to become world class in his position, and you also have Tyler Blendall who, if Carbery's not around, is going to be more than just a game manager, somebody who will be pushing him the whole way along. It's pretty sensational.
Yeah, and you've JJ Hanrahan in there as well, who has probably started to grow a bit more into himself this season. He's probably got to play a little bit more as well, and with Ian Keatley leaving midway through this season, and he'll be on for next season to Italy, you know, there's probably just a bit more certainty there for someone like JJ Hanrahan about how much he's probably going to get to play. And I think in the last couple of months you might have just seen there's maybe a little bit more confidence in him that, you know, he's probably not as worried as he might have been a few months back when Carbery'd come in.
The other deal that was done, which is going to go under the radar, is Mathewson's extension at Munster. Just like watching them last Saturday, I do wonder if there's like a decision to be made at some point over the next couple of months. Obviously, Conor Murray's going to get back to close to Conor Murray form. You'd imagine that the Six Nations was a blip, or he just hasn't played enough game time. Like, at what point does Conor Murray's form become a situation where Johan van Graan has got to make a decision at 9 if they're both fit?
I think it's still a long way from that yet. Like, Mathewson's only signed up till after the World Cup anyway. He's only just signed up to basically to hang around there while Conor Murray's presumably gone to the World Cup. I know they'll have Nick McCarthy will be there at that stage, and Neil Cronin has got some game time this season as well. But it's just really to have one more experienced body in there for the World Cup period. I think Murray's form would need to drop considerably more than it is at the moment for him to be really, really worried about his starting position.
Yeah, like just looking at it at the weekend as well, he's a bit of a man who can stir things up a bit. He picked up a needless penalty in the first half of that game against Zebre on Saturday, but is that not what they need at the moment? Is that not what, I guess, on a national level, even Irish rugby can look at and is like, we need a few more players who are willing to stir the pot a bit on the pitch?
Yeah, like that penalty gave away at the weekend, it was a fairly foolish one to give away, but overall this season I think he's proved to be very popular in the squad because he's a player of enormous experience. And I think having players with that experience, especially from outside Ireland as well, I think it works very well when you have all those internationals away during the Six Nations periods when they're not available. Having an older guy who's been around the block and knows the drill is a very good guy to have in the squad. Like you would have seen it, I know Easton Asewa and it was an exceptional player even when all the internationals were around. I mean, he would have been one of the first names on the team sheet, but you could see the leadership he would have brought to that Leinster team those really young players last season and in the last couple of years, when they would have had droves of players away on Six Nations or, autumn international duty.
There is a scenario where outside the scrum half, or even if Matthewson starts, where only Keith Earls would have been produced by the Munster Academy in that backline. Sammy Arnold and Farrell, Mike Haley and Andrew Conway on top of the out-half situation.
Rory Scannell would be a starter, would he?
Yeah, I think it would probably be Scannell and Farrell would be the first just centre.
Okay.
So you're talking two.
Yeah. That's a little bit worrying, right?
A little bit. I think probably 2-3 seasons ago, you probably would have been a bit concerned about the amount of players Munster were producing. I think, though, in the last year or two, like you look at the Irish under-20s team that won the Six Nations Grand Slam, there were a lot of really good Munster lads in there who played vital parts. You're looking at like Jake Flannery, Sean French, Jonathan Wren, Craig Casey, the scrum half, had an absolute blinder of a tournament.
Is he tall? Is he another?
Craig Casey?
Yeah.
Oh, very small.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Do you remember he dumped was it Jordan Joseph, the French number 8, on his backside?
Do we need just a little change in our recruitment policy where we love you 5'9" people, you're great, but could we just have a 6'1" scrum half for?
We need to be looking into genetics or something like that.
Yeah. But then there are others as well who've kind of got game time in the last couple of years. Fineen Wycherley, his younger brother Josh then was playing on the Irish under-20s as well. They're both very highly rated. Liam O'Connor.
Where do they play?
Fineen is second row / back row, and Josh is a prop.
Right.
And John Hodnett then as well, another number 8. And then someone like Jack O'Donoghue suffered a bad injury last year. Liam O'Connor as well. There are a lot of good young players.
Lots of brilliant young forwards coming through.
Yeah.
So what is it about the schools game, the academy system, that isn't bringing through the next O'Gara or the next centres or the next full-backs?
Well, I think the group that are coming through in the last couple of years, there are a lot of really good backs in that. Like I mentioned Casey there. Jonathan Wren and Sean French were two guys I would have seen playing schools rugby, and they were absolutely phenomenal. They were brilliant when I saw them play, and in particular the two of them had massive roles in that Irish under-20s team. Another player who I think he might be primed to kind of make a step through in the next couple of years could be someone like Calvin Nash. I would have seen him play again at schools back since he was about 14, 15 years of age, and he was a phenomenal talent back then. He's got an unbelievable step, like one of those real Jordan Larmour steps. He probably just isn't kicking on as much as he might have liked to.
He's a winger.
He's a winger as well, yeah. And then Dan Goggin has forced his way into a couple of big matches this season. Big physical centre. Another young Limerick guy as well. So I think there are a few signs that they're developing players. They probably haven't developed a star like they would have had with that kind of those few years with Simon Zebo, Peter O'Mahony, Conor Murray, and Keith Earls maybe coming in a few years before them. They just kind of went on a roll where they produced 3 or 4 absolute, world talents. But
yeah, and in fairness,
there probably were a few fallow years, but I think there are signs that there are players there ready to come through.
Simon Zebo being allowed to go isn't really a Munster issue, it's an Irish rugby issue as opposed to anything.
Yeah.
Because his face doesn't fit with the Ireland team, so therefore he doesn't get offered the contract, he's not going to play international rugby, he's like, oh, why would I stay? That seems to make sense.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was certainly his decision to leave, and I think a lot of people would have understood that there was a massive contract on the table there. And, I think Munster fans pretty much let him go with his blessing. And
do you have any concerns about the dilution of the Munster brand and the Munster ethic when there are so many players from outside, particularly players who are switching from your greatest rival in Leinster to come and play for Munster?
I wouldn't normally. I wouldn't really be massively concerned about it, because I think most of the ones that have come in, they've pretty much bought into Munster. Like Andrew Conway is one of those who in the last couple of years has been so popular.
But can we just address that, the way you asked that question, the dilution of the Munster brand? Are you concerned with the dilution of the Munster brand? Let's spool that back a bit. Do you think the brand is being diluted, as Ger suggested in his question there?
I don't think so, really, no. No, I really don't.
That is the question I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it is automatically. There's a possibility that it might become diluted at some point. And then
on the other hand, we mentioned it there with Zebo, it's a professional sport.
Well, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
So, the Irish provinces have had this inbuilt energy and thing that propels them forward, and that has been the bind with the locality. And they've tried to harness that. You know, when you think back to what Pat Lam did when he came in and talked about the counties of Connacht and kind of trying to just embed a sense of locality and place, and the players responded to that. And despite the fact that a bunch of those players weren't from Connacht. I don't know, I think that we just need to be very careful about tampering with the ecosystem in the very blatant professional way that we've done it, because professional sport is about winning, and it's purely cynical to get outcomes. At some point, those outcomes, maybe no one gives a shit about it. Maybe fans don't care about anything other than winning, and fair enough. And that you could put like 15 New Zealanders in the Munster jerseys, and if they played the best rugby that the Munster fans have ever seen, and they all sing, stand up and fight, then happy days, everybody. I don't know if everybody's happy with that, but like,
Can I ask you a question? Like, I get your Joey Carbery connection because of Athy and all that. Like, do you feel a connection with Leinster as a province, as a geographical place, and that when you see Johnny Sexton kicking scores for Leinster, you feel even a more local pride than you see when he kicks scores for Ireland? Like, do you identify with the geographical nature of Leinster?
No, because it's like the 4 provinces of Ireland are this kind of thing that we have had since, like, I don't know, was it Queen Maeve's time? Isn't that when the provinces were?
Let's give her credit, yeah.
But like, the style of rugby that they play is something that is fairly thrilling, and the fact that like those, you know, that's a team that you support growing up, and they have this long period of not being very good and being killed by their local rivals in humiliating fashion on a fairly regular basis, and then they become really good. It's like, yeah, that's an amazing thing to witness. And then players from your town start representing that team. Of course you're going to have a bond with them. Like, that's the whole point.
But no, I get the town thing. That's totally acceptable. And I can see why when Joey Carbery gets pulled away from you as an Athy local.
There's two Athy lads playing for Munster now.
Yeah.
Like, it's mad. It's a bit mad.
Yeah, but I mean, look at what, 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, you had quite a few Munster guys playing over in Leinster.
Yeah, yeah.
And even more recently, you know, Owen Redden, Mike Ross, 2 guys who would have...
They both were forced out of Munster, though. I think it's a different situation. They both had to leave because of, well, Declan Kidney, and like went off and made their way in England and then came back. It's not like...
Yeah, but someone like Tyg Byrne is the exact same there. You know, he wasn't given the chance at Leinster, so he had to go away, and all of a sudden, and I don't think wow, that guy's amazing, let's get him home.
And look, I think that, you know, I can see Tyg Byrne's motivation against Leinster being off the charts, and I totally understand that. And I think that's a different situation. Whereas, and so Jeremy Lukeman's exactly the same, right? Like, absolutely, you go and you make it and you kill it as best as you can, and that's great. But it's when it's these players who are like marquee players, who you know are going to be marquee players, and you start going, it just feels a little bit Game of Thrones, where there's a controlling force going, this rivalry matters not a jot to me, even though I run Irish rugby. What I care about is the naked results and the outcomes of the revenue generating national team, and that's all we really care about. This stuff, you know, I will try my best to manipulate everybody to feel like, you know, I will make the situation as cutthroat as I possibly can, because ultimately that's just to my benefit. So it just feels like there's a bit of a game being played with the relationship that fans have with their team, that supporters have with their team as opposed to fans.
Yeah, I don't know, like I think you're talking there about, like, you know, the rivalry and maybe, like, you know, the Munster-Leinster thing. Like, that most recent Munster-Leinster game in December, that was the most fierce one we've probably seen for a few years.
It's true, yeah.
And someone like Joey Carbery was right in the thick of it, with, you know, Johnny Sexton shoving him around.
I wonder, it feels like it's being manipulated by David Newsfora. Like
the idea that you say that it's, well, I can't remember the term you used, that it's weird, or that it shouldn't be that, like, Athy players are now going from Leinster to Munster.
Maybe it should be, and maybe that's all irrelevant. But then in that case, then what's the point in having a tie to your local province? What's the point in supporting? So ultimately, you just support the people you like. as opposed to the team. What's the bond?
It's more than where the players are from. Like, I mean, we've spoken here in the past, like wild speculation that rugby in Ireland could do with a draft system. Like, you look at American sports and their draft systems. If you're somebody who's grown up, say, like LeBron James in Ohio and goes through the ranks and manages to play for Cleveland, great. But what happens if somebody else was in that position and Cleveland were brilliant and they're not the first draft pick, and suddenly Los Angeles are the team that are picking them, or somebody closer to home?
You've already entered college, though.
But like that's ultimately also a Game of Thrones. Ultimately, it's just whoever's in the right place at the right time gets to pick. And like, just because somebody's not from your place, or because there is a team that is closer to their actual hometown, doesn't mean that group of supporters can't really get behind that player, or they feel a lessened sense of identity for their team.
So that's obviously the most nakedly commercial professional sport on the planet, and that's the point of that, is to make everybody money. The owners get together, create a monopoly system, keep the money in themselves, suppress the value of the players. Like, it's a pretty evil system when you think about it. It's just designed to pump up the value of the individual teams and make the owners rich. This is supposed to be a sport where it's about the values of Munster and the values of Leinster. And remember it's supposed to be like that's the point of rugby. And so the draft system, if the draft system happened after school and then they were going in to become professional players, they would go through the academy and they would have their time in the academy. Or maybe if it's at the end of the academy, I don't know, then that becomes a bit like, what's
the point?
Yeah.
I just think with so many players from Leinster going, not just to Munster, but to Connacht and Ulster as well, I think what's a big thing is it's not just guys who are leaving Leinster and deciding, I need to pick up a paycheck somewhere. I'll just find a club. You know, most of these guys like Joey Carbery, Tog Byrne coming back to Ireland, Chris Farrell when he joined Munster, Geordie Murphy going over to Ulster, Marty Moore coming home, going over to Ulster. These guys, the ultimate goal is they want to play for Ireland. They want to be the absolute best player they can. So if they're going to your province and they have that attitude of, I want to be the best player I can, I want to ultimately play for Ireland, I'm not going over there because they're offering me a nice paycheck. They might be offering that as well. But I think the fans will be happy enough for that.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that kind of constitutes as the buy-in, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it does clearly delineate the hierarchy is massive between Ireland and the provinces. Like, it means that ultimately all that matters really is the Irish stuff, and the provinces are great and mildly diverting. When actually the rest of the world seems to be going towards your club is hugely important, and there's massive value in the Premiership and in the top 14 in having those clubs, and maybe that's why those leagues are ultimately at the moment looks like bound for failure. So I'm just posing these questions. Certainly feel like you just need to be careful when you start messing around with supply chains. Like, I totally understand the Ireland team, and if somebody comes and signs, although because they're professionals, they're always going to like say the right things. Act
yeah, but I mean, for the most part, they're doing the right things as well on the pitch. You know, that's obviously where it all matters. Like, a Munster fan is going to be fully bought into whoever is there if they're doing it on the pitch. Like, you look at what 3 years ago, Jaco Taude came in on a short-term loan from Munster.
Yeah,
he straight away. He just became part of this big Munster family kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Put in some good performances, and the fans absolutely loved him to the point where they kind of had to offer him a new contract straight away.
So did Geraint Grobler, though, didn't he? And that's kind of the point about, like, the fan bases will take whatever player is playing for them and ignore what has led to them being there if they think that it's going to work out for them. In a way, I think that.
Yeah, I think it's
the point, though, isn't it?
I think it's a different situation with Grobler, though, because there was, at least with Grobler, there was an actual fundamental reason where you might disagree with him joining, you know, coming into the Irish system or coming into a province. Whereas, you know, it'd be a completely different situation if you're saying he came through the Leinster system. You know, it's two completely different things there, I think.
I'm not sure. I think they're all on a scale. Anyway, good stuff, Neil. Thanks for joining us this morning. Not bitter at all. All right, last shout out for our brilliant Heineken Rugby Club Roadshow that's taking place tonight, the 27th of March in the Olympia Theatre. We've got a brilliant cast of guests: Keith Wood, Shane Jennings, Malcolm O'Kelly, Stephen Ferris, and the the legendary Michael Cheika. There are a final few tickets left over at offtheball.com/events. Doors open at 6:30 tonight in the Olympia. And just to let you know, Off the Ball is the only place to hear live and exclusive radio commentary of Leinster against Ulster in the quarter-final of the Heineken Champions Cup this Saturday. Dream Team, Liam Toland, Andy Dunn and Kevin McLaughlin are going to be in commentary alongside Conor Morris for the 5:45 kickoff at the Aviva. First time they've played in the Heineken Cup since the 2012 final. Am I right? Is that the first time? They were never drawn in a group together, were they?
Played each other? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to be going to play you out with some Richard Keogh. Okay, we're going to play Richard Keogh and then we'll come back after this. So here's a little bit of Richard Keogh from... He played really well last night. It was kind of, as Gary Breen was saying, a very vocal presence, kind of bossing people around. You wonder, has he cemented his place in the team? Is this going to be one of those situations that Mick McCarthy decides, you're my guy, and if Kieran Clark comes back and plays really well in the Premier League...
John Egan, I guess, is the guy, isn't it?
Who?
In competition with Richard Keogh, was that the sort of debate we were having before the game, before the Gibraltar game,
to get into the team?
Yeah.
Kieran Clark, if he's fit, is probably, but would have been there anyway.
But Mick is you're my guy. You're my number one guy, Jack.
I think it's like I made the point to Gary earlier on. I think we're already in the point where it's like, certainly goalkeeper and back four, you're not moving them at the moment, are you?
Yeah.
I know the international football doesn't work like that because you got chasms in between games.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that there's a good chance that Matt Doherty gets in at left back at some point. But anyway, we'll see. Here's Richard Keogh talking with Phil after the game anyway.
Richard, 2 wins from 2. You must be delighted.
Yeah, that's obviously that was the goal when we set out, when we met up. So, yeah, listen, 2 wins, 2 clean sheets. It's a good start to the campaign.
What's Mick said to you after the game?
Nothing, just like thanked us for our efforts meeting up. Obviously, was getting to know him, he was getting to know us, but training's been fantastic. They've really got the intensity going, and like I say, obviously the Gibraltar game was the game that we wanted to win, and we did that. We've done the job. I thought tonight we played very well, and I thought we deserved to win the game.
It's the 3rd time in a row in a home game that we've beaten Georgia 1-0, but do you think this was probably the most comprehensive, if you can say that, about a 1-0? In terms of the
potentially, listen, potentially I thought we controlled the game, to be honest. I thought even though later on in the second half when they had a lot of ball, I thought we counted them very well. We could have easily scored 2-3 goals tonight. I thought it was a very good performance.
There was a massive intensity from the start of the game. The Georgia manager just commented on it there after the game. How much was that disruptive for him to try and hit them on the front foot there?
Yeah, it was. That's what we spoke about. They're obviously a good team. I think they're a bit of an underrated team, to be honest. Technically, they've got some very good players. So, we're at home. We don't want to let them get control of the ball. We wanted to put them under pressure and get around them. And then when we got the ball, we wanted to take control. And I thought we did that. Like I say, we set off. Our intensity was very good. Got around them, forced them into mistakes. Played some nice football and deserved the win.
Yeah, pretty happy with his performance, Richard. It's great in the aftermath where in the mix zone like that, they're all like just chatting and smiling and telling jokes. Like, doesn't happen that often. And look, we've beaten Gibraltar and Georgia. It's not like we have beaten Denmark and Switzerland. So the context in this is that there's a recovery from where we've been.
The context in this is that we're back. We're going to qualify for Euro 2020, and in front of our own fans, we're going to hammer all comers, and we are going to win Euro 2020. That is the context here, and that's all that matters this morning.
If we get drawn in England's group, is there a possibility Ireland and England's in Dublin? Because they won't have every game at home.
Good question.
Presume they wouldn't. Would they?
Isn't the situation that if Ireland draws
Nations League-esque permutations here? Come on.
There's only one guaranteed venue, I think, from an Irish perspective, if they qualify, and it's if they get Spain in their group, which I think is going to happen in Bilbao, or is it going to happen in Dublin? Because Spain are obviously a host.
Yeah, not Dublin. I think Bilbao, that rings a bell. But we'd have to be drawn in their group. But what if we get drawn in England's group? Do we have to play at Wembley? The Declan Rice derby?
That would be sensational. Like that's the route. If you're giving me a potential list of routes of how we're going to win Euro 2020, because we obviously are going to win it, then I would probably pick that one.
Yeah, that would be the best. Well, but do you want to wait until the semi-final?
No, wait until the final, actually, because the final's in Wembley.
Yeah, okay. That would be perfect. All right, we had a brilliant prize this morning. We teamed up with Leia Healthcare, the official health and well-being partner to Leinster Rugby, launching Wellbeing Wednesday. As we mentioned, one lucky winner per week will win a Blue Book voucher for £250 for your very own wellbeing retreat. This week we've 2 tickets to add for the Leinster-Ulster European Cup quarter-final this weekend in the Leia Healthcare box. So as I said, the best seats in the house. All 9 of our weekly winners will then go into the draw, and one lucky winner will receive a well-being hamper and a Leinster season ticket for the 2019-2020 season. We asked you to tell us who scored Leinster's first try in the 2012 Heineken Cup final win against Ulster. It says win, it was a paddling, and to use the hashtag, it's good to live. The winner of this morning's competition is Rob Byrne, who said Sean O'Brien got the first try, hashtag it's good to live, hashtag OTBAM, and there is the picture. Owen Redden and Mike Ross, Keane Healy, Brad Thorne. Jesus, you forget about Brad Thorne for like a second, but like he was here a wet week and was, you know, immediately kind of had this awesome impact on that entire cast and crew of people. He had the biggest head I've ever seen in person.
Sure, he's not from Leinster, Joe.
I mean, he had the biggest head I've ever seen. Whatever about Shane Duffy's head, we could have a measure off. It's just huge. No, he's not. He came for a professional contract. He stayed for 6 months and he left.
Did you like go quiet? Did you like reserve any cheering on Brad Thorne whenever he got the ball?
Because that's how it works.
I don't know. You tell me. You're the Leinster fan here.
Did he join from Munster? Did we steal him from one of our main rivals?
He's not from Leinster, and he's certainly not from Athy.
No. These are good points you're making. Factually correct, I believe. Joseph said the groups are predetermined. Us and Spain, no England. Ireland will play Spain if both reach Euro 2020. So that was it. Sorry.
That's why the Spain thing got so much fanfare. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
if we qualify, we're playing Spain. Do you know what? I'll
we play England. What stage of the tournament? Is it not until the finals?
Well, I don't know. We're going to have to play them at some point, aren't we? We're the two best teams in Europe.
Yeah, that's definitely the takeaway from the weekend.
Well, on a serious note, do you look at what Denmark did last night as a sort of crap? If only they hadn't. If only Switzerland had absolutely pummeled them.
No, I don't know.
Or is that just all nonsense, really, that anything that happens in this little tiny window can actually transfer into what happens in the next window? I'm sure it can in terms of Ireland repairing things and actually getting a little bit more of a confidence in that green jersey. But in terms of actually, say, Denmark getting thumped and us going to...
No, you want everybody to drop points, right?
Yeah.
You want them to all draw against each other, us to draw all the games and then win the last one and go through, squeak through.
Last night was a good result for Ireland. Like, the other game was a good result for Ireland if we want to top the group. But we're going for second here.
I mean, let's just keep that ambition alive while we possibly can.
I've gone from us beating England in Euro 2020 to us finishing second in our qualifying group as our limit. So a bit of a climb down.
All right, that's pretty much all we got time for on OTBAM this morning. Lots more coming up on Off the Ball across the day. Peter Caffrey joins the Gaelic Football Show from 12:30. Off the Ball is back tonight from 7. Johnny Ward is presenting. Shane Keegan is in studio. It's Ireland versus Georgia reaction from Kevin Kilban and Kenny Cunningham. Interview with 3-time Formula 1 race winner Thierry Boutsen talking about his career. He was a friend of Ayrton Senna, has some Jordan stories going as well. And Wednesday Night Rugby will feature Rory O'Connor of the Irish Independent. Our roadshow is live from 7 o'clock this evening at the Olympia. The last few tickets will be available on the gate, but I actually don't think there's that many left at all. So if you want to head along, make sure you get there early. We're back from 7:45 a.m. tomorrow morning. Kieran Donaghy joins us for the very latest edition of Shot Clock. Mayo star Sarah Rowe is going to join us to talk about her brilliant AFL experience with Collingwood and what to expect from Mayo this year. Plenty more too. We'll see you at 7:45. Good luck.